Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table. Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. So good to be here with you today. We have a heck of a show here for you. My name is Seth Krussman, and I'm here once again with Ben Brayshaw and Dan Mickelin. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Seth. How about you, Dan?
Doing really good. Excited about the holiday season. Let's get into it,
Hopefully you don't go bankrupt buying me gifts this year.
Well, I got plenty of room on that credit card, I guess.
You sure?
Hey, speaking of holidays, ho, 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 how do you afford Christmas is the topic today. We've got some great we've got some great experience as well we're willing to share with you, but also we've got some advice here, some ways that you can, bring home the bacon, so to speak, for the holidays. And it's going to be, I don't think we've ever done this show. Do you?
Nope.
Do you remember ever doing this show?
Well, I think this will be a first.
This will be a first.
Cool. New content. Or, as always, it's always new content here with us. We're always bringing it to you with the best of three-dimensional investing, your personal finance headquarters. That's what we're doing here at Money on Tap. If you're new to Money on Tap, welcome. We're glad to have you aboard. All of us are financial planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. And what we do is, outside of this podcast, is we do financial planning. And we talk here on this podcast and this radio show about three-dimensional investing. We're going to take a look at all sides of the issue and bring home to you some great suggestions and recommendations from our experience working within personal finance and retirement planning. And this is going to be fun for us today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really see a lot of people struggle with is trying to balance the financial world around them. And the holiday season makes it tremendously difficult because there's so much pressure on people each and every day to either travel somewhere, get to family, get family to them that can't afford to get to, like in gifts and, big dinners. And I mean, it's just, there's a lot of money that is put out on these holiday seasons. I mean, I was walking through, I don't know if it was Target or Walmart, and it wasn't even Halloween yet, and they had Christmas stuff out. I mean, like totally skipped Thanksgiving.
That's so quick. I mean, the marketing is relentless, and it starts earlier and earlier every year. So it's good. I mean, I like getting into the holiday spirit and all that, but it also gets the wheels turning in everyone's minds, I think, and kind of the stress begins early. The factoring in, where am I going? How much is it going to cost? Who are we entertaining? And, that's around the normal challenges of just figuring out a list and who we're going to buy, who we're going to buy for and what are they going to get. It just is an overwhelming time of year, particularly when we're dealing with inflation and rising costs and kind of the circumstances of the day that I think make this Christmas a little bit unique and a little bit more stressful than most.
Well, stress or no stress, I guess that's one of the things that we can try to check the box on here is like, let's take it down for you guys. Let's bring it down a notch and let's get some solutions in place. But before we get going down that road, it is time for Money in the News.
And first article of the day, we got, the first question Bob Iger must answer as Disney's CEO. And this is from Alexandra Canal from Yahoo Finance. And if you've been following the news, the financial news anyway lately, there was a big move over at Disney where the present CEO, not very long, was fired and let go. And they brought back Bob Iger, who had been the CEO previously and had significantly more success in the role. Disney's been in the news a lot. We've kind of covered that lately here on the show. A lot of it having to do with, kind of the political stuff around education and the kind of squabbles between Disney, the entity, and the governor there in Florida. But this is a little bit different. I think this will be probably welcome local news for sure, kind of bringing back in Iger. But really the focus of the article and the changes to be expected to help Disney better perform are less related to the political stuff and more to do with their streaming services.
Yeah, they lost $8 billion in their streaming services, and they're expected to lose another $3 billion in the first quarter of next year. And it's, for a world that people are streaming more and more, and the streaming industry alone is expected to have some losses in the first quarter. I mean, that is kind of an expected scenario. But for a stock like Disney, which was up in the high 100s, like 185 or 190 even, I think. Did it cross 200?
I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and now it's trading at below 100. So it's like almost half off. So the question is what's going on? There's been a lot of racket about both the agenda of what has happened in Disney. I mean, that's been a big conversation. I know a lot of organizations and conservative people have dropped Disney because of so much of the woke kind of agenda that seems to be coming through on their material. So that has driven. I mean, I've just heard huge organizations just selling Disney irrelevant of everything. And then to have a streaming hit like this, I mean, that is probably, I think, potentially part of that story too. I mean, there's a big conservative, push against Disney, and I think that they're experiencing a portion of that because they're outpacing the downward trend of the general of the general streaming world for an organization that is literally content and entertainment driven only. Like they are the pinnacle name, of video content.
When first off, the stocks responded to the news, by the way. It's up about 10% in the last few days, based upon this change of leadership. But when streaming really started becoming a kind of an everyday thing, I remember having this conversation with you. I know I discussed with my wife. Like Disney had just had such a great position over the whole field because they already owned content. They had this massive voluminous library of just endless entertainment that they already owned. It had already been built. It had already been filmed. So for them to somehow manage to not, hold that top spot in the streaming world is, something's going wrong there.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just a completely fundamental, breakdown on. I mean, you're right. I mean, they literally have the most content in the most languages as well.
Yeah, everyone else is going to go and make stuff, right? Netflix is going to go produce movies and shows and Prime and all their competitors. So for them to enter the market with thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of content that they know sells. I mean, this stuff is all hits. So for them to somehow screw that up, there's something going on there.
I really do believe that they're experiencing a lot of headwind from the conservative side of this. I think they really are. I think way more than they're even going to give credit to. So,
yeah, it's interesting when you start taking a look at what's happened in the relationship here with the market and Disney, and some of those stories that have come across our desk around Disney and their political stances and the direction that the company's going. It's interesting to see. When we went back to the 2020, it was like an $87 stock. And that was, COVID related and the fall off there. But there was no question about whether or not you were buying Disney at $100. And now to take a look at what the price is today at around, it depends on the day, roughly $90, $97, $100 again. Is Disney one of those places where you feel like it's going to continue to produce a successful story? How they've botched, I guess, is the term around streaming. I'm really curious to find that out as well, because again, the catalog that you're talking about that they have, the names like Marvel and all of this stuff. I mean, just turn on I assume you have Disney Plus as a streaming service. If you just turn it on, it's like, what don't you have there? There's something there for everybody. And then it's such a vast library. It gets me to almost just completely cancel any Netflix subscription or anything else out there that's producing content. But I don't know. I'm really curious to find out what's going on there. And as a whole, we're still a Disney family. We're still buying Disney, and we're still, investing ourselves probably more than we should into the Disney story.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is there's the Disney Plus streaming service, which we're all familiar with. I mean, you get your Star Wars there, all the children's shows. I mean, just tremendous, timeless content. But they also have ESPN and Hulu, and ESPN's had its ups and downs for sure. But Hulu is that's my streaming service. That's where I get my TV. I think it's a great deal, and so one of the potential remedies here is some kind of a combination of the three separate services, which I think potentially makes sense for them.
It's interesting because I was I subscribed to Disney, and I think Disney came with my Verizon plan. Yeah. So I got Disney and I've got Netflix, but I've also got PureFlix, which is like a kind of like just a generally good content. It's supposed to be like religious based, Christian based. And they actually have some pretty decent content too, and some of the kind of the pop culture Christian movies and stuff like that. But I mean, content is content, and it's a driving force for where the world's going. So if Disney can't get it figured out, someone's going to.
Taylor Swift fans are a little bit miffed, to say the least. The Taylor Swift story is one that, frankly, I'm not.
Come on, Seth. Be honest. Come on, you're a big fan. We know.
Well, I'm going to look over here to my 10-year-old daughter.
You're
and probably,
a Swiftie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I couldn't get tickets either.
Yeah, so the story there has been big in the news lately. Obviously, she crashed Ticketmaster, right? They were attempting to sell tickets to a show as they're supposed to, and there was such tremendous demand that it just absolutely sunk the whole website and left people with really no avenue to pursue to get these tickets, and it was just a total blackout for a while.
Well, I literally was driving around with my daughter and her friend, and they're both home for college for Thanksgiving, and we're chatting, and she's talking about how she's a Swiftie, a recognized fan of Taylor Swift, and so she's got a special code, and she was telling me, I hadn't even heard about it. She's like, oh yeah, she's like, I was waiting for like 4 hours. And my code wasn't working, and like you have a special. She was explaining the whole thing to me, like you got this code, and you're like on the thing, and you can't. But her code wasn't working, and a lot of people's codes weren't working. So you were given a kind of a pre-purchase code,
priority purchasing power.
Like you are a Swiftie, and you get to buy first. And she said people were on there for even another 50%, 6 hours. She said she knew somebody was on and still didn't get tickets. So it is kind of interesting, but there's a huge movement by a number of fans, Swift fans, who are attorneys, who have now gathered together. I think 1,200 attorneys, right, have got, this article talks about 1,200 attorneys have gotten together to sue, Ticketmaster and basically the monopoly that exists around this since they bought out. What was the other ticket company they bought out? It was
Ticketmaster?
Ticketmaster bought out another ticket company, and then there's
not SeatGeek.
No, I can't remember what it was. But anyways, it was they bought out another ticket company, and so now they control 80% of all ticket sales. And they're saying this is a major problem from the monopoly thing. The only thing I got as I was reading this story was that watching Gen Zers get ignited over Taylor Swift to actually take major action, I was thinking to myself, how can we actually replicate this in the business world?
Yeah, I don't know if you could find anything else that has 1,200 lawyer fans. That's a big number.
That's a big number, but it literally crashed their system left and right.
And some of the fallout from this, and I'm not a Swiftie, so I wasn't exactly following the story with bated breath, but I did see some interesting news come forward about this dynamic pricing, which is part of Ticketmaster's issue here, where they'll launch ticket sales of a given show, preset at whatever the general pricing would be, based upon how close and how good the tickets are. But once they hit the market, the pricing begins to evolve based upon volume of sales and how many people are competing for a given seat. And the prices can absolutely skyrocket. And that's what we saw a lot of here is just prices going up 300%, 400%, 500% instantaneously based upon
front row seats at Taylor Swift were selling for $30,000.
Whoa.
$30,000 a ticket. That is crazy.
Yeah, and I can't imagine anybody willing to pay it, but apparently there are. But I did see a kind of follow-up interviews with other artists who use Ticketmaster and this dynamic pricing. One of them was Bruce Springsteen, and he commented, a couple of things, that I thought were interesting and more truthful than I expected to hear, quite honestly. But, he essentially said he's been, in his opinion, discounting ticket sales for over his long career, and him and the band are kind of getting towards the end of the touring rope, perhaps. And his perspective on it was, well, everybody else is doing this and kind of reaping the benefits, so we figured we'd give it a shot this time around. And as well, these inflated ticket prices, rather than go into the pockets of scalpers and people who work in the secondary seating market, why shouldn't it go to the artist, was his perspective. Which, again, I still wouldn't spend the money. I'm not necessarily a Springsteen fan, but I did find that to be kind of a more honest than expected answer.
Yeah, so it was Live Nation was who they merged with. So Live Nation and Ticketmaster merged in 2010, and then that created the antitrust issue with the monopolies, and then they've started creating this dynamic pricing, which has sent this whole thing into craziness. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, when you think about it, I get the fact that, hey, these tickets sell and then they keep marking it up, and that actually happens in art. So if you I was at this walking by, I saw this beautiful ocean art, and I was like, oh, this is super interesting. I just want to go in and look. And they were selling these photographs for large amounts of money, which were outrageous in my mind. But at the end of the day, when she was explaining to me, she's like, well, this is the first one that would sell. So, this one sells for X thousands of dollars. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, but when the last of the 20 that sold in this group sold for X of tens of thousands, and this one sold for X of hundreds of thousands. So by the time every time they sell, they keep marking the next one up by a percentage point based on how fast it sells as well. So like if you buy one and then someone buys one immediately right after, the price jumps a certain level. But if you sell one and it's like 2 months later one sells, it might not jump as much.
And when you get thousands of people in a waiting room online, with a credit card handy and, just feverish to get their hands on tickets, you can see how some gouging's probably taking place there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, this for a second, I thought you were talking about Elton John, just because he was saying farewell to the U.S. and live, doing any kind of live performing arts. Elton John will no longer be a stage presence, at least not in the U.S., as of this last week, his final show at Dodger Stadium. I just saw that pop up. But no, you were talking about Bruce Springsteen. Should I sing some Bruce Springsteen for us to take us into the next article, or are we good?
We'll say we're good.
Yeah, I think we're all right. I think we'll be all right.
Next up, this is Will Daniel. I'm just going to jump right in here and save our audience the painstaking event. The bear market will end early next year and create a terrific buying opportunity. Morgan Stanley's Mike Wilson says. Now, if anyone knows who Mike Wilson is, he is not an optimist.
No.
He is not an optimist whatsoever at all. So for him to start talking about how good the market's going to look next year was a shocker for a lot of us to read, and something that has gotten a lot of headwind in a lot of ways because he has been so negative on so many things. But he doesn't leave the event without talking about negativity, though. He does say that doom and gloom is coming, and it's coming in the first quarter. Be prepared to see the S&P down in the low 3,000s, which I've heard a lot of people talk about. There's a lot of fundamental analysis that actually says that there's a support level in the low 3,000s between the 3,000 and the 3,300, which is what he notes in his conversation. What's interesting is he says that this bear market rally, caps out around 4,150 on the S&P 500, which is kind of an interesting number in its own right. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, true to form, he doesn't let you, walk away from a read or watching him with any kind of
you're like, oh, it's going to go up, comfort. And oh no, we're going to crash.
Yeah, hey, good news is this return's coming, but before we get there, he's going to let you know that there's more pain to be felt, and it is. I wouldn't say anything's true consensus these days, but a lot of what we read, kind of would lean towards the fact that earnings are still high in the S&P. And they're expected to take, kind of a hit here between end of the fourth quarter, beginning of the first. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the general recession fears. Although, similarly, there's a lot of consensus around the fact that, whatever pain we feel there will be short-lived and the bounce back will be pretty good.
Well, I think there's lots of different types of investing. So depending on what type of investing you're doing and whether you're in a diversified portfolio or just an equity portfolio, there's a lot of moving parts there. And I know this is just money in the news, but I think this is important enough to share. We have a blue chip portfolio, a value portfolio that this actually references the blue chip space has been hit. Our portfolio has been up year to date, which is net of fees, which is, great. And it's actually amazing in this marketplace. But we have other portfolios that are down who are diversified in kind of the generic, like trying to be as passive as you can with a little bit of technical management, which we've beaten the market pretty well, but it's still down. And so there's a lot of different moving parts here that push people in different directions. So you've really got to be careful in the type of portfolio when you're watching this advice. And this guy's talking about how to do, because we talked about on our last show that historically 19 out of the last 19 midterm elections, so 100% of the time, the market's been up 12 months later. And matter of fact, it's been up at an average of over 16%. Now, 6 months after a midterm election, it's been up over 15% on average, not all of them positive. Right. So it's kind of interesting that we've got all of these different moving pieces that people are talking about, and there's a lot of opportunistic items available. When do you get back in if you're sitting on the sidelines? When do you actually decide to commit? And I think that's really where people are scared, because there is a lot of money on the sidelines. And I think, kind of waiting for that 3,300 to come, it may never happen. And that's kind of the hard piece of this conversation. Seth, I think you wanted to say something. I can see it on your face.
Sure. Yeah. I was going to say, the question of when do you get back in as an investor, picking your spots sometimes may never happen. Sometimes you're just, you have to be, as an investor, you have to take a look at the big picture and say, yeah, we're off of our high. Yes, we've gone back up, and yes, we may come back down. And you start taking positions incrementally. It's a dollar cost averaging is what it kind of comes back into as an investor. It's just taking positions and not being an all in, all out. This is not a roulette table, folks. You're not all on black, all on red, or whatever. This is where you go ahead and you take a look at big picture. We probably have some more news coming down the pipe, that fire and ice of, the slowing down of the economy, the raising of rates, the, slowing down of some of these companies. There's still, 20% too high as far as, their corporate earning estimates is what those projections look like. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a time for you to take a part of or take a step into. Because again, like Ben, you were saying, do we come back? Does it pull back? These guys don't know. They're just, and nobody really does. But what we do know is that it was heck of a lot higher. And we do know over time, what's the market going to do? It's going to come back. I mean, that's one of the things that history has shown us over and over. I mean, it's been said, that's the guarantee of the market, is it will go up over time. So let's go ahead and break there, folks. That's it for Money in the News. Cannot wait to come back to you with more Money on Tap. Ho, ho, ho. How do you afford Christmas is the topic for today. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Folks, we have a lot of fun doing this show, Money on Tap, and Ben and I have been financial planners for years and years, and our goal here with you is to bring you into the room, have the conversations that we have. We think these are critical conversations for you, but we understand this is a limited space, and what we'd love to do is to open the doors to you with us at Brayshaw Financial Group, so you could experience what it means to have three-dimensional planning in your life. Let's take a look at all sides of your situation, your scenario, and see how we can put together the best plan possible, taking into account your risk, how much can you have in the market? How much do we need to have set aside and doing different things for your life? That's what we do as planners, how we engage with you, and we welcome you to do that with us. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, if you have $250,000 that are investable assets today, our planning is free to you. We want you to have the playbook to have a successful experience in retirement. Give us a call, 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Ben and I welcome you to Brayshaw Financial for complete wealth management.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're talking about how do you afford Christmas? This year may be more of that might be more of the topic of conversation that folks had around that Thanksgiving table. Looking at some of those Black Friday deals a little bit more closely and probably doing a little bit different planning this year for Christmas than they have in the most recent year. This didn't even really come up as a topic, but just the government not giving people money this year that I'm aware of probably made a bit of a difference for people. You think?
That's horrible. It's not the government's money, Seth. I'm not buying other people's Christmas gifts.
Little Santa stimulus. Is that in order?
Oh, gosh. You guys are killing me.
Come on, Uncle Joe. Come on.
Uncle Joe. Listen, okay, so, folks, we've got nearly 217 million Americans. I'm just moving right past you boys.
If you sit in his lap, you'll get a check for that.
Oh, that's horrible. Cut that. Cut that down. Okay, nearly 217 million Americans, 84% of people plan to buy their gifts for their friends, loved ones, and those they hate on a credit card this year, folks. That is crazy. And the average shopper plans to spend $823, a total of $178 billion in gift spending in the United States alone.
Absolutely incredible. I'd probably never even attempted to think of quantifying that, but to see it there in black and white, that is an absolutely astronomical shopping spree we're all about to go on here.
Yeah, someone needs to live a little Tiny Tim is what I'm thinking. So this is crazy. This is crazy. So, some of the statistics around here are pretty astronomical. So, close to a third of last year's holiday shoppers are still in debt from the previous season. A third. So a third are still paying down last holiday. I mean, forget just like your bills. The last holiday season.
Yeah. I think people go into this optimistically because around some of those credit stats, I saw that 70% or so of people who spend on credit, go into it with the goal of spending it, paying off their credit card debt in that first statement that comes through. But those two numbers don't jive at all. Reality sets in, and people just simply don't get around to doing it.
Yeah, that's a tough nut. I'm curious how many of that third are carrying holiday debt from the previous year or the previous year, if that's just a rolling number for them and that's just kind of a lifestyle, or if that is a factor of where we're at just in this, contraction in our economy. And that's just just kind of a hangover from that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Seth. And the thing is that we meet so many people that do things so uniquely different. But I do know a number of people I've talked to over, my career, and there's people who have like a holiday credit card. Like they have a card they only use for holidays and birthdays and so forth, and that's how they manage their finances. Kind of like the old, kind of envelope system. Like people would put cash in an envelope and go out and buy groceries or do this or do that. It's like they have their credit card, like this is the holiday credit card. I think it's a little bit more difficult now when you have like Amazon and you're buying thousands of things on Amazon. You're like, oh yeah, and I'm going to get this Christmas gift. By the way, guys, I'm going to send you both my list. So it is long, it is intensive, but I expect it to be filled.
Hope it's on Amazon.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Just know I've already gotten you your present, Ben.
Oh,
it's in the mail.
Did you all hear that?
And it's not my fault if it doesn't arrive.
It was a singular item. It wasn't presents. It was a present.
Oh, I misspoke. I meant presents. Yeah.
This is crazy. So, nearly 3/4 of shoppers will buy their gifts on a credit card, charging an average of $663. I think it's just astonishing to me that the numbers are this high. And for some people, it's significantly higher. And that really brings us to our first conversation about how to make Christmas affordable. The number one thing about Christmas is that you have to be organized. And an organization around Christmas is more than decorations and preparing for people to come, but it's kind of an overall spending commitment. Like, what are you willing to spend on Christmas? And doing a budget. Sorry, big B word, budget. But really understanding, and I thought this was funny. One of the things that came out was creating a list of people that you were going to buy for and then put a value to the relationship. Did you put that down there, Dan? Yeah. I'm calling your wife. I think that's actually pretty interesting, but I mean, there's some value to Dan's statement here. But the truth is that when it really comes to pricing,
I just gotta tell you, this is so funny because now we part of the shows that we've done in the past is like, what's the value of life, and from a perspective of what we do all the time of trying to help people understand how much life insurance is appropriate and what's the value of life. Now we have a value of your relationship show we can pull out next.
Yeah,
can't wait to see how you do this, Dan.
Yeah,
teach us.
I will be your Padawan. So 51% of Americans typically say or feel they overspend around the holidays, and that number is $832. And I think on average, when you start really breaking that down and you really figure out, hey, listen, for Christmas, this is how much I'm going to spend, or as a married couple, like this is how much I'm going to spend, I would include food, beyond the gifts. Like, what are you doing for dinner? Like, how many people are you having? Are you overspending? Like, my wife and I actually literally had to make a decision when we were newly married, because we both really liked getting together with people, was we realized that we were spending so much money on food, having people over, even though people were helping. Because people bring a pie, but you end up, but you're providing the extra hors d'oeuvres, or someone forgot the drinks, or, whatever. And you're always taking on more expense hosting. So that's a conversation to have with other people in your family. Just say, hey, listen, we have a specific budget. And it gives a good conversation and a healthy conversation to say, we have a budget on what we're spending on Christmas. And so what I've done is this is what we're going to spend on the food. And if you could help us out with this is what we're going to prepare. And so it shows thought, and it doesn't come across wrong, in my opinion, when you actually do it.
I mean, any conversation around a budget is kind of puts people in a defensive posture, I think, in general. But there's certainly ways to do it, and especially if you're dealing with family and friends. I mean, you wouldn't be inviting people who aren't close to you. Then
that's presuming a lot, Dan, for American holidays.
Close to it doesn't mean you like them. That's probably two different things. But yeah, I mean, those conversations, particularly in times like these, they just have to be had. And I think as long as you do it in advance of, then people we'll still find a way to get together and have fun, enjoy the times.
And budgeting actually includes good lists of like, this is what we're going to do. Like, we're going to have a ham at Christmas or a turkey, and we're going to have this, and this is what these costs are. And you start saying to people, hey, I want to do these for dinner, and I'm going to need this much in this size tray. And you literally lay it out for everybody. And, for people who can't cook, you just say, here, can you bring, really, really get into it. And the fact that you're taking that much conscious effort, they understand you're taking this seriously. Everyone knows inflation is here, right? I mean, this is really the reason we're having this conversation. Inflation's here, and how do you mitigate the cost of the world around us today so that it's like last year, the year before? How does it make it more financially possible?
Yeah, I mean, we did a show last week about Thanksgiving costing on average 20% more this year. So reasonably safe to assume Christmas will be the same.
And turkeys are on sale right now. Right. That's the one thing. After a holiday, that's the one piece that you can take advantage of. So maybe now's the time to buy the turkey for Christmas.
Yeah, and after all this, the statistics tell us about 37% of people actually prepare a budget for Christmas. So, for the rest of us, and I got to put myself in the kind of the larger portion there, just roaming through the mall without a list in mind or a budget in mind, just kind of doing that last second shopping, can certainly be painful.
I got to tell you, though, my wife's she's on top of this. I mean, she literally has a dollar amount that she spends on every kid. And then I'll be like, yeah, well, I got this for, well, she'll be like, what did you do? I've literally have, so she has a very organized perspective of the financial piece of that, which is funny because, I'm the financial planner and she's planning this all. So I think that's really, I do appreciate that a lot about her, just organizing that. But she also is very conscious of how many gifts kids are opening too. So with our kids, she wants to make sure she's spending the same amount and that there's at least something for all of them to open at the same time as they're going through it. So someone doesn't feel like they got 10 gifts and someone else got 2 and you're like, you hate me. And meanwhile, one person got a computer and somebody else got 5 Lego sets.
Yeah, I don't have that at home. My problem is the opposite. We have this conversation early on about, okay, this is what everyone's going to get, and then I'm done. She's never done. She's never done.
I got to tell you, Ben, Kim sounds a lot like my mom, and I mean that in the best way possible. That is exactly how my mom would do things for Christmas and it still happens to this day for the grandkids, and that's just everything is very thought out to the number, to the dollar amount, and equal. And I can appreciate that. That's a real act of service and love. Now, I got a couple of stories here, and I need some. Actually, this is something that just popped up while we were talking. This last weekend,
careful, folks. Seth's off script.
Yeah, she had a cheer competition. So that's not really that's neither here nor there. But during this big break, we were like, well, let's go to Costco, and we're going to get our Thanksgiving shopping done. But when we left Costco, and we're checking, first of all, we got the bill, and we're like, oh my gosh, how many people are we feeding for Thanksgiving? And it's a fair amount, but anyways, we're just moving on. We got to get back to the cheer competition. We're running late. Got to go see this. And we're checking out. You know how they take your receipt and they double check what you've got? They're like, well, did you get 2 tomatoes? And we look at each other and we're like, no, we didn't. But you know what? How much are tomatoes? We got to go. We'll come back and whatever. It's like $10. We'll figure it out. Well, last night we pull out the receipt. We spent $150 on tomatoes somehow. Apparently, we bought 2 cases or whatever of tomatoes. So, folks, that's one way you don't save money for Thanksgiving. Don't buy that many tomatoes. And I don't know, maybe just do a little bit of not backed into the corner on your timeline. Give yourself a little bit of time at the checkout stand and just make sure that you're spending the money on what you wanted to spend the money on.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's just really being in articulating the gifts. I think, that's what I was talking about. I think there's a lot to be said when you're really caring that much about how much you're spending on somebody, and how many gifts you're doing. All of those things, they communicate other forms of love and intent. And I think that's what you were speaking to, Seth, about the ladies there. One of the things I was thinking about. There's 2 ways of saving money for Christmas that have come up in my world. The first one is that gift cards, which I hate getting gift cards. Everyone in my family knows I hate getting gift cards because I don't go out shopping for myself. It's not like, hey, I really want to go hit the mall today. That's just not what I do. Or I want to run over to Best Buy. No, I'm at work, and by the time I get home, I'm tired and I don't want to go out. So, gift cards are not my thing, but in a world,
not Ben's love language,
not my love language. If you really care about me, you're going to find something I like. You're going to put it. So, but in reality, looking at this Christmas, gift cards. If you said, "Hey, I'm going to spend $100 on mom and dad this year," buying them a gift card, for $100, even to a store that they love or to that makes a lot more sense because guess what, folks. post December 25th, everything goes on sale. 20, 30, 40% off. It's crazy deals. And now that $100 gift card can buy them significantly more than maybe you'd be able to give, which would be more in line with the 20% turkey increase cost. And I think that is probably one real area where, you can start mitigating costs, especially if you know your kids really want a specific toy and you say, hey, listen, maybe the toy is more than you want to spend, but you can give them a gift card hoping that the toy is going to be more affordable post-Christmas. So,
yeah, and I think a great technique is always, if you are, for me, I start out with a list, but I probably do more grazing than I should, and just kind of, walking my way around the racks and picking and choosing. But, one thing that's so much easier to do these days is, if you find yourself in that spot and you didn't really get a chance to research your gift intents, before you go ahead and check out and buy something, just grab your phone and price check it, right? You might be able to find the same exact item someplace else, either online or through another retailer, at a significantly lesser cost than the one you're holding. So that's how you don't end up with $150 worth of tomatoes, I guess, is, take a couple seconds and check that price and, see if you can't find a better deal someplace else.
Dan, that right there really hurt my feelings.
If I had a tomato, I'd be throwing it at you right now.
Here's what I have to say about that. The gift card thing, actually, a little off script here again for you guys, because that's what I love to bring to the show. You know what? We've got this. We actually have a collection of gift cards. I don't know if anybody out there, has this Ziploc baggie in the drawer in the kitchen or whatever.
That's what I do.
You know what I'm talking about? Yes. You've got all these gift cards that you've been given, and some of them are for restaurants and some of them for whatever. But what we take is we take those gift cards and we go out and we specifically have the intention of using the gift cards to try to purchase the presents for people on our lists. Okay, so they're getting used. And Ben, I apologize. Part of your gifts that are on the way just might be some gift cards. And for Ben, his love language is really just the anticipation of receiving a gift. So what I'm going to give to Ben is let him know for the rest of the year that, it's in the mail, so that he feels that he's always being thought of throughout the year. There's also that person in your gift giving as well. Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're talking about ho, ho, ho. How do you afford Christmas with all the inflation of this last year? And plus, we realize that you're probably all hosting Christmas and the holiday parties, and you've got more friends now than you did last year because, COVID's over, right? So now we can start being together again. Well, how are you going to afford buying all these presents this year? We're going to bring to you some more great holiday gift ideas and savings ideas here at Money on Tap. We'll be right back.
For a number of our listeners, they have a lot of questions, and you might be one of them. Today, we're just offering what we call Zoominars, webinars over Zoom meeting rooms, where we have top experts, Social Security, estate planning, and financial planning experts for you to speak with, do a private consultation that way today. We're also having webinar-based Zoominars where we're going to have multiple groups where you can be part of that and enjoy that as well. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com to schedule your Zoominar.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about ho, ho, ho. Holy smokes, no. How do you afford Christmas this year? And, one of the things that is just part of what we're doing this year, and we talked to the kids about this, and this actually is what they would like to do, and inflation does not truly affect this. It's actually gifting to organizations on behalf of people. So, supporting a child that needs school or needs some dental care or that's what's going on through the ministry or the missions organization, you can give those gifts to people, and you don't really have to worry about that stocking stuffer getting set aside and never used that year as well. So those are some ideas for you. How to adjust for inflation this year.
One area that I think is, and I know we didn't even talk about this, so I'm going a little off script, but I'll be safe one of the things that you can do too with credit cards, with inflation and rates going up, contact your credit card companies because they will lock in your rate. They will do adjustments for your rate to keep your business. If you don't monitor them, they'll keep raising it and raising it and raising it. And you almost have to kind of call them and keep them in check. So if you're dealing with a kind of a higher interest rate or you just saw a bump, you can call them and say, hey, listen, I'm just debating on moving my credit somewhere else. And they're happy to keep you around, especially when they know you've been an ongoing customer.
Yeah, and if you're going to be in touch with your credit card companies too, the other thing to check out is to see if you have any accumulated points, right? You may have more value banked there based upon your shopping habits and the balances you carry that allow you to get some kind of freebie gifts based upon those accrued balances that you have. And sometimes credit card programs will have discounted sale items themselves. You might have to get online to check that out, but a lot of them these days do offer direct retail products at discounts.
So I have a Discover card that I use, and I get whatever 1 or 2% cash back and blah blah blah. But I can buy gift cards for places we're going to go shopping. I mean, we used to, we used to do it for grocery stores that they have. What?
Did you just say that you're giving gift cards, but you don't like getting gift cards?
Well, now I'm doing it this year because of our new show.
Oh, good. Okay, all right.
I'm following my advice.
And another thing too is kind of the do-it-yourself gift or giving the gift of time, and this is one that I've always appreciated when it came my way. Some of the things that I saw as examples and times thereof. Offering to cook somebody a meal. Sit down, break bread. Come in with the food prepared, and a lot of people out there are more interested in the experience than unwrapping that gift that they'll never use, kind of a thing. So that's a good opportunity, or if you know a couple with young children, offering to babysit and kind of give them an opportunity to get a night out on their own. That's another big winner. I'll take that anytime. You too, if you're looking for ideas from me, babysitting works. Okay. So come on over.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right.
Yeah, babysitting.
It's been a while since I've been asked to babysit another person's child, but that's okay.
My wife might think it's a bad idea on your part to offer that, but I'll step in the void.
As long as I leave with 3 and come home to 3, we're good. So that's
well, okay. So I'm going to give some kind of very, very drastic ideas for approaching Christmas for people who may really be struggling to figure out how to afford it in this environment, and they want to do something. So, first drastic idea is to not celebrate Christmas on Christmas. I know people that actually do Christmas on New Year's. They do Christmas on New Year's Day as a family, and they buy all their gifts from December 26th to New Year's, and they spend a very specific amount of money.
That sounds very Canadian of you. I don't know why, but that sounds very Canadian.
Very close. I'm very close to the border. So that's one thing that's very interesting. I also know people that just do Yankee swaps. We do a Yankee swap at our house for all the adults. Among our, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and everybody, we just do a Yankee swap. Or we do name picking. It varies year to year. I'm not part of that voting pool. Never was invited to it. I'm just told which one I'm doing.
I have a dear Aunt Mary who would run that program for us before she moved to Florida, but she ran this thing hard. But you had to show up at Thanksgiving with your gift, like clipped out of an advertisement. Like you needed to physically bring what you wanted exactly, and then that would go into the hat. And everyone had a $50 limit. And so you leave Thanksgiving knowing who you're going to buy for, what they're going to get, and who's buying for you and what you're going to get, all predetermined. So it worked. It was functional, but it really killed the fun. That was just one thing.
Well, it would be funny. Yeah. It would be funny if you put it in a Yankee swap. Now that would be funny.
Yeah, so you pull a name and the gift. So it's like the whole deal is just done. Well, so not exactly Yankee swap, but.
So we just one-up that, and we just say, go buy your gift and bring it to Thanksgiving and give it to the person that's going to give it to you.
Yep,
and there you go.
That happened a number of times as well.
So that's the first scenario. The second piece, which is a little less drastic, is the idea of, when you're mailing gifts out, or you're meeting somebody after Christmas for Christmas, buy your gifts after Christmas. It just makes a lot of sense. There's just so much wasteful spending and markups. These companies are just getting rid of stuff after Christmas. They can't get it off their shelf fast enough, and I think that's going to be the one thing this year that will drive a lot in that space.
Yeah, and another thing that we're attempting to implement this year in my family is, as we've gone through the process of the price limit and the predetermined gift, there's a handful of children around, so they want to enjoy the spirit, and so all the kids are getting gifts. But amongst the adults, rather than kind of guessing at buying a bunch of stuff that either nobody wants or you have that kind of predetermined, kill the fun kind of a concept. What we decided to do is, in the summer we take a trip as a family, so we're just going to pool all those funds, everything that we would have spent, on adult gifts for adults. We're just going to go ahead and put it into that fund, and we'll use that in the summer.
I like that idea.
That's great. I love it. It's an experience, and it's something that you'll always have versus that. I'm sure, Dan, you probably had a model airplane or something like that on your list that probably just really would wind up getting played with and broken anyway. So we'll just bypass that whole process.
It sums up my youth.
Folks, if you are out there shopping and you're shopping online, we do have some ways that we want to just advise you or make you aware of how not to do that. For one, public Wi-Fi. It's a place where your information is not safe. And I want to just say the only way that I'm aware of to make that safe is if you are actually on a VPN, a virtual private network, would be one way to make sure that your information is safe. But there's so many people out there just are unfamiliar with, what being on a public Wi-Fi actually exposes you to. It could be the person that's sitting there right next to you that's just grabbing hold of all of your information.
Yeah, I think this is really one of those kind of things where, Dan, you're talking about, you start, you're like at Target. My phone never works when I'm in Target. Don't know why. It just doesn't work. So I connect to the public Wi-Fi.
It's the angels. It's the angels looking after you, Ben.
And so I'll connect to that. But, all of a sudden, if you are shopping for something and you're at a store and you're trying to do a price comparison online and I'll just buy it right here. Boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden you start inputting. Yeah, that's how you get exposed. And that is a big item, especially when you're kind of doing that cross. Some people are listening saying, well, that's obvious. But for some people, it's just like, I hadn't even thought about that. And I think that's important.
Yeah, do the price check, but then go home to purchase it once you get on your own network. Don't just go ahead and punch in the credit card in public like that. And as well, there's all these kind of back-end scams that are sure to be bountiful this year where you're going to get these random calls and texts saying they're from a credit card company or from a retailer, and they're going to be asking you for personal information to verify a purchase you very likely didn't make. And you can find yourself in a trap there pretty quickly if they do get lucky and you happen to get that bogus call purported to be from a retailer that you actually shopped at, and you find yourself in a position where you're reauthorizing a credit purchase because you feel like it didn't go through, and it's the kind of the crunch of the holidays. Take your time with that. Realize that most of these companies don't call you directly, and if there's somebody that you do shop with frequently, just be aware of their kind of follow-up procedures, whether it's the retailer or a credit card company. They all have specific ways in which they will reach out to you and ways in which they will not. It's a good good way to pick up on a scam early on if they're contacting you through a means that that they just typically don't use.
Yeah, these kind of like blanket emails that go out, like they say, hey, listen, check your Visa card or check this. We get those all the time. But they're sending them out to millions and millions of people, and then they say, and they're hoping one person responds. And you may have just bought something at this store or done that, and it's just ironic. And you're like, and I do it too. I question, I'm like, do I need to respond to this email? This looks exactly like what I just did.
Yeah,
that's the scary part.
It's easy to fall into these traps, especially when you're, it's December 24th and you've just made, 20 different purchases at 10 different stores and using 3 different credit cards. It can get confusing quick.
Yeah. To protect yourself, one thing you can do there is go ahead and get that free credit report and just pay attention. Have that one on hand, and then you can do a comparison shortly after the holiday, just to make sure that everything that you have there is still in line. Listening to Money on Tap. Folks, it has been a journey for us today. We've been talking about ho, ho, ho. How do you afford Christmas? You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com, especially because there's so many other stories that we'd love to hear from you. and your experience of what you've been able to do with your holidays and how you've been able to save money. Because, we realize that there's only one Aunt Mary, and that's Dan's. And you might have somebody else in your family that's done exceptionally well at helping the family out and having a great safe holiday season. Folks, we cannot wait to be back here with you again. You're listening to Money on Tap. Make it a great week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.